Welcome to Shatter.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. It was 3 nights before Christmas when my wife, Megan, leaned over the kitchen counter, stared at her wine glass like it held a secret, and said 10 words that blew our marriage wide open. If I had one night with him, I'd be satisfied. She said it casually, like it was a joke, but her eyes weren't laughing. She was talking about her boss, Ryan Caldwell, the man she worked under for 5 years, the man she always described as intense, powerful, driven. I used to think those were just workplace compliments. Turns out, they were fantasies. I didn't react. Not right away, because sometimes silence is louder than outrage. I just stared at her, watched the corners of her mouth twitch like she was waiting for me to laugh or yell or challenge her. But I gave her nothing. She raised her glass and took a sip. The moment stretched. And then she added, "I mean, if we weren't married." Obviously. That obviously was the lie. That if was the truth. I didn't speak. I didn't touch my drink. I didn't even blink. I just stood there, burning that moment into memory. The decorations on the walls. The soft jazz playing from the living room. The faint scent of cinnamon from the cookies she had baked earlier. It was all so festive. And fake. That night, I didn't sleep. I watched her instead. Peaceful. Curled up, like she hadn't just detonated something. Like her imagination hadn't cheated in real time and invited me to watch. By morning, something in me had shifted. I didn't confront her. I didn't beg. I didn't even mention it. But I started moving pieces quietly. Calculating. She wanted one night? Fine. She'd get one moment of fantasy and a lifetime of reality. I started with her calendar. Checked when the office Christmas party was scheduled. December 22nd. Friday night. She had already mentioned it casually, said it would run late, that there'd be drinks, music, maybe dancing. That was my opening. Over the next few days, I watched her prepare. She worked late twice, ordered a new dress, booked a nail appointment. She didn't say it was for him. She didn't have to. I pretended to be oblivious. Asked normal questions. Smiled when appropriate. Kissed her forehead like I wasn't already emotionally moved out of the house. But behind that mask, I was building something she didn't expect. A mirror. Not of me, but of her. Because if she wanted to test limits, I'd let her. Just once. But she wouldn't come back to the same man. She'd come back to silence, consequences, and a coldness she couldn't thaw. And the best part? I'd make it look like her idea. This Christmas wouldn't be about joy. It'd be about clarity. And Megan? She'd never forget it. By Monday, the air between us was polite. Too polite. Megan moved through the house like nothing had happened, like she hadn't cracked the foundation with a single line. She kissed me goodbye in the mornings, sent texts during the day, asked about dinner plans. All routine, all performance. I played along, because that's what you do when you're about to rewrite the ending. That night, she showed me the dress she ordered for the party. Red, tight, too much for a corporate event, not enough for what she had in mind. She turned slowly in front of the mirror, checking the back, the sides, the neckline. She smiled, caught my eye in the reflection. "You like it?" I nodded. "Yeah." She grinned like she won something. She had no idea she'd already lost. While she focused on seduction, I focused on separation. I pulled my name from the joint account that afternoon. Booked a suite under a different name at a hotel across town. I started scanning my phone for property listings, not because I needed a new place right away, but because I wanted options. Freedom. Air. The first person I called was my brother, Mark. I didn't go into detail. Just said, "Something's coming. I might need a couple weeks off the grid." He didn't ask questions. Just said, "Say when." That's what I love about men like him. Loyalty without drama. By Wednesday, Megan was buzzing with energy. She played Christmas music in the house, wrapped gifts, baked cookies she never even liked. She texted me flirty comments from work. I responded short, but warm. Just enough to keep her comfortable. Just enough to keep her predictable. She came home glowing that night. Said the office was doing Secret Santa with a twist this year. Said Ryan had joked about being on the naughty list. I asked, "You draw his name?" She laughed. I wish. That laugh stuck with me. Because she wasn't hiding it anymore. Not even trying. And that's the part that hit hardest. Not the fantasy, but the confidence that I'd stay quiet. She thought she could say anything, do anything, and I'd still be the same man waiting on the couch when she came home. But I wasn't waiting. I was watching, tracking the moment she crossed the line, not to stop her, but to record it, burn it into memory. Because people like Megan don't learn from arguments. They learn from absence. I started packing a bag that night. Just one. No drama. Essentials only. Clothes. Documents. The laptop. A few keepsakes. Not because I was planning to run, but because I wanted her to see what it looks like when a man prepares in silence. The calm before her storm. Thursday morning, she asked what I was doing Friday night. I told her I might hit the gym late. Maybe catch a drink with Mark. She nodded, distracted. Her eyes on her phone, typing fast, smiling at whatever she was reading. She never asked what I was really doing. That was her last chance. And she didn't take it. Friday arrived cold and sharp. The kind of night where even the wind felt like a warning. Megan spent an extra hour getting ready. She lit a candle in the bathroom, played music through her Bluetooth speaker, and floated through the house like she was on her way to a dream she'd been rehearsing. Her red dress fit exactly the way she wanted it to. Tight, clean, calculated. She checked her hair 3 times in the mirror, put on perfume I hadn't smelled in over a year, then walked out into the hallway like she expected applause. I said nothing. She turned to me, smiled faintly. Don't wait up. And I didn't. She left around 6:15 p.m. By 6:30, I was in the hotel suite across town. 5th floor. End of the hallway. Quiet. I dropped my bag, took a breath, and pulled up the list I'd made on my phone. It was short. Precise. Everything I needed to finish before the night was over. First step, transfer the last utility bills out of my name. Done. Second, deactivate our shared cloud account. Every photo, every backup, gone from my side. Third, schedule the delivery of divorce papers through my lawyer. I had timed it perfectly. A Christmas Eve surprise. No confrontation. Just a knock on the door. By 7:45, I was done with the admin. The technical severing. But the emotional part? That came later. I logged into Megan's old tablet. The one she forgot she left synced years ago. Notifications still came through sometimes. Messages. Calendar updates. Private chats. I wasn't spying. I was documenting. At 8:03, she messaged Ryan. Bars thinning out. Want to sneak away for a bit? He responded instantly. Thought you'd never ask. I stared at the screen like it was a stranger's life. But it wasn't. It was mine. She made her move. No shame. No fear. No hesitation. And I didn't feel rage. I felt release. Because there it was, the proof. Her loyalty wasn't stolen. It was offered, wrapped in perfume and red satin. By 8:30, her location pinged at a hotel downtown. Different than mine. She was 20 minutes away, thinking she was entering the best night of her year. Meanwhile, I was drafting my final message. Just one sentence. No emotion. No drama. Whatever you wanted from tonight, keep it. I won't be home. I didn't send it yet. Timing was everything. She wanted one night? Fine. I'd let her have it. But the next morning, she'd wake up to a reality she never planned for. A home stripped of my presence. Accounts closed. Photos gone. Locks changed. And worst of all, no one to blame but herself. Because the man she left behind didn't raise his voice. He just vanished. I woke up early, before the sun, before the guilt could catch up to her. The suite was quiet, clean, untouched. I sat in the armchair by the window, watching the cold morning pull light over the skyline. I sipped coffee slowly, not because I needed to stay awake, but because I was already more awake than I'd ever been. At 7:12 a.m., Megan's location was still at that hotel. She hadn't come home. She hadn't even bothered to move. Perfect. I sent the message. Whatever you wanted from last night, keep it. I won't be home. Read receipt confirmed. 7:17 a.m. No response. Not yet. At 7:31, the app showed her leaving the hotel. 10 minutes later, her location disappeared entirely. Probably turned off her GPS. Typical move. Hide when exposed. But it didn't matter anymore. She wasn't hiding from me. She was hiding from herself. By 9 a.m., I was already checked out and on the road. Not back to our house, my house now, but to Mark's place. He had cleared the guest room, handed me the spare key without a word. That's what brothers are for. Silence when needed, presence when earned. At 11:02 a.m., Megan finally texted. It was short. Broken. Where are you? I didn't respond. Her second message came 3 minutes later. We need to talk. Still nothing. By 11:30, she tried calling. I watched the screen light up once. Twice. I let it go black. That was the difference now. She used to withhold what I needed. Now I was withholding what she craved most: clarity. Let her sit in it. Let her play back every moment. The dress, the laugh, the message she sent to her boss. Let her wonder how much I knew. The answer? Enough. At noon, I got a notification that the divorce papers had been delivered. She signed for them herself. I imagined her standing there in that red robe she always wore on weekends, makeup smudged, eyes scanning the envelope like it was written in another language. But it wasn't. It was plain English. And it said, "You went too far." At 2 p.m., she texted again. "What is this? You're throwing us away?" I almost laughed. She thought she still had access to us. Like she hadn't already burned that bridge in heels and lipstick. I didn't respond. Instead, I changed the locks. Not out of anger. Out of necessity. Out of respect for the new version of me, who wouldn't let her walk through the same door twice. By 4 p.m., the house was stripped of her presence. I bagged up her things. No drama, no damage. Just removal. Her closet emptied. Her photos taken down. Her scent replaced. She thought she was taking a night off from marriage. Turns out, she clocked out for good. And now? Now the man she once knew was just a story she'd have to retell to herself. Over and over. Until silence was the only voice that answered back. By Christmas Eve morning, the silence between us had shape. It had weight. It filled every room she used to occupy. And it followed her through the front door like a ghost when she finally came home. She arrived around 9:45 a.m. Alone. No suitcase, no apology. Just a hollow look and a phone clutched like a lifeline. The lock had been changed. She stood outside for 4 full minutes, trying her old key like it would magically start working again. When it didn't, she rang the doorbell. Twice. Then knocked. I watched from my car across the street. She looked smaller. Not physically. Emotionally. The kind of small that comes when the illusion of control dissolves. She used to walk through that door like she owned the house. Now she couldn't even open it. She knocked again. I stayed parked. She pulled out her phone. Called me. I let it ring. Eventually, she sat on the porch. Her perfect Christmas Eve unraveling in slow motion. She kept checking her phone, maybe expecting a message. Maybe waiting for me to walk up and ask what happened last night. But I never moved. At 10:15, she finally texted. "Please, just talk to me." I didn't. By noon, she was gone. That night, I sat in the living room. Tree still lit. Ornaments still hung. But the warmth was gone, and that was the point. She had taken the spirit with her when she left me emotionally weeks ago. I was just matching the energy now. At 8:30 p.m., I got a message from her best friend, Laura. She's at my place. Crying. Says she made a mistake. Wants to explain. Explain? You don't explain betrayal. You experience the fallout. I replied with one line. She's safe. That's enough. No more. On Christmas morning, I made coffee. Black. No gifts. No music. Just quiet. I opened my laptop and booked a one-way ticket to Denver. Mark had a friend there who needed short-term project help. Clean work. Clean slate. I wasn't running. I was rebuilding. By the afternoon, Megan posted a photo on social media. Just the Christmas tree at Laura's place. Captioned, "Sometimes we learn the hard way." She disabled comments. I didn't like it. I didn't view her story, because I wasn't her audience anymore. That evening, she texted again. A longer message. Said she messed up. Said she didn't go all the way with Ryan. Said she stopped herself. That it was a moment of weakness. I didn't believe her. But that wasn't the point. Even if she was telling the truth, it meant nothing. She had emotionally exited the marriage before I physically stepped out. That's the thing people never say. Intent is betrayal's shadow. The act just confirms it. I didn't reply. Not to punish. But because she was no longer speaking to someone who had a reason to answer. And in that silence, she finally started to hear herself. By New Year's, I was a ghost in her life, but more alive in mine than ever. The house was no longer our home. I cleared out the final pieces, photos, keepsakes, anniversary cards she'd never met. I boxed her things carefully, respectfully, and dropped them off at Laura's with a note. No need to return anything. She tried calling again that night. 3 times. I didn't answer. Instead, I sat in that quiet house with a whiskey in my hand, packing the last bag I'd take with me to Denver. Fresh city. No history. No shared grocery lists or saved Netflix profiles. Just space. Breathable, untethered space. At 10:47 p.m., a voicemail came in. Her voice was low, trembling. "I know you hate me. I know I deserve it, but I didn't think you'd actually walk away." She paused, then added, "I didn't think I mattered that much to lose." That was the line that stuck with me, because it was never about hate. It was about clarity. When someone tells you, even with a smile, even in passing, that they'd trade your entire presence for a one-night fantasy, you start to understand how replaceable they think you are. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. I didn't walk away because I was weak. I left because I was finally strong enough to stop waiting for someone to choose me properly. By January 3rd, I had signed the lease in Denver. One-bedroom loft, exposed brick, open windows, a silence I got to choose. The first morning there, I made coffee at sunrise. No sound, no phone buzz, just me and a view of the city that didn't hold her shadow. That's when I started remembering who I used to be. Before I shrank myself to keep her happy. Before I filtered my reactions to avoid conflict. Before I measured my value by how close she stood next to me in public. I was learning to live loud in the quiet. Reading again. Running again. Eating food she never liked, but I always did. The world didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt like mine. Megan sent one last message on January 8th. I hadn't blocked her. I didn't need to. I just stopped being reachable in the way that mattered. She said, "I finally get it. You're not punishing me. You're done." She was right. And that's the difference people don't see coming. They expect storms, slammed doors, screamed accusations. But sometimes, the deepest cut is the absence of noise. The man she once knew had left the building, and in his place was someone she never imagined. A version of me that didn't need to be chosen, because I had already chosen myself. I never blocked her. I didn't ghost her. I didn't even tell people what she did. Because silence wasn't just a punishment, it was a statement. And she was finally hearing it. In the weeks that followed my move to Denver, I kept a routine so clean it felt surgical. Wake up early. Gym. Coffee. Project work. Long walks through the city. And each day that passed, the distance between who I was with her and who I was becoming stretched further. But she didn't let go. Not really. She kept trying, subtly at first. Little digital taps. An email about taxes. A shared streaming subscription she claimed needed canceling. Then came the photo accidentally sent to my number. A sunset from a beach we once visited. There was no caption. She wanted me to ask. I didn't. By week 4, I started receiving messages from mutuals. "She's not doing well. She talks about you all the time. She says she made the biggest mistake of her life." But those were echoes. Distant. Removed. And I'd already stopped playing translator for her regret. Because here's the truth. When someone breaks you and watches you bleed without blinking, they don't get access to the healed version. That's not cruelty. That's evolution. Mark visited in February. He took one look around the loft, saw the books on the table, the gym bag by the door, the absence of any drama, and said, "You look like someone who finally took a deep breath." And I had. Because clarity is oxygen. And lies, they suffocate. We went out for drinks that night. Somewhere with live music and no memories attached. I watched people laugh, dance, move freely. It struck me then. I had spent years watching life through fogged glass. Never fully in it. Always managing her moods, her silences, her discontent like I owed her my peace. Now, I wasn't managing anything. I was living. 2 days later, Megan sent her last message. A paragraph. Long-wounded. Careful. She said she understood if I never spoke to her again. Said she hoped I found happiness. Said she'd carry the weight forever, but wished, if nothing else, I'd remember that not all of it was a lie. I read it once, then deleted it. Not because I was angry, but because I no longer needed her words to close the chapter. I was already living in the next one. And it didn't start with an explanation. It started with absence, with space, with silence she couldn't interrupt. By March, I stopped checking if she'd reach out. Not because I was numb, but because I was full. Full of the life I had postponed. Full of mornings that didn't begin with tension. Full of time that didn't revolve around someone else's dissatisfaction. Denver wasn't just distance. It was rebirth. I started saying yes to things I used to avoid. Hikes with coworkers, late dinners with no agenda, even a weekend retreat up in the Rockies. I didn't talk about Megan. Didn't explain. Didn't need to. The version of me they were meeting wasn't a man recovering. It was a man already returned. But back in the digital corners of her life, my name still lingered. Laura texted once. Out of the blue. Said Megan wasn't dating, wasn't going out, barely spoke at work. She's different, not herself. And I believed it. Because the Megan I knew was built on the illusion of control. And when I walked away without slamming doors, she didn't just lose a husband. She lost the mirror that made her feel centered. She wasn't used to consequence without confrontation. But that's the point of shadow. You don't yell. You don't plead. You let reality do the talking. That week, I revisited some of our old spots. Not to chase ghosts. To reclaim ground. I sat in the coffee shop where we had our first anniversary breakfast. It had changed owners. New chairs. New paint. But the same view of the street. I brought a notebook. Wrote for an hour. No memories haunted me. No weight followed. I wasn't revisiting pain. I was collecting proof that I'd outgrown it. There was no anger in me anymore. No fantasies of revenge. Just understanding. Cold, sharp understanding that not every betrayal deserves a breakdown. Some just deserve distance. A month later, a mutual friend tagged me in a group post. I clicked out of habit, and there she was, in the background of someone's birthday shot. Alone. Eyes not focused. Smile missing. I stared for a second longer than I should have, then scrolled on. Not because I didn't care, but because I didn't need to. She was still stuck in the memory of a man who would have forgiven her if she had cried fast enough. But that man, he was gone, and in his place stood someone she never anticipated. Unreachable, unmoved, and unrecognizable to the woman who once thought he'd stay, no matter what she confessed over wine and casual cruelty. Spring in Denver comes slowly, sunlight creeping back, snow melting into rivers that don't ask where the cold went. I walked the city like I'd lived there for years. Not hiding, not recovering, just existing without noise. One morning, I opened my social media for the first time in months, just to check on an old college buddy's engagement post. That's when I noticed Megan had unfollowed me. No fanfare, no message, just gone. It didn't sting. It didn't even register as personal. It felt like watching the last piece of a story float downstream. But later that night, I looked again. She hadn't just unfollowed. She had deleted her entire account. Everything. Photos, comments, tagged memories. Gone. It made sense. Her shame wasn't public, but it was deep. And shame doesn't scream. It erases. Meanwhile, mine had evolved into something stronger. Peace. I wasn't broadcasting my transformation, but I wasn't hiding it either. New city. New friends. New rituals. Every photo I took now was mine alone. No compromise. No do I look okay in this. No edits to make her feel secure. Just life. Undiluted. A week later, I ran into someone from my past, Emily. We dated for a few months in college, then lost touch. She was in town for a business summit, recognized me in a bookstore of all places. We grabbed coffee, talked for hours. It wasn't a spark. Not yet. But it wasn't nostalgia either. It was clean, real, present. She asked about Megan. I told her the truth. It ended the moment I realized silence spoke louder than love ever did. Emily didn't pry. She just nodded. That's what made the moment real. Not the chemistry, but the clarity. She saw the version of me that had walked through fire and didn't smell like smoke. That night, for the first time in a long while, I didn't think about the past before bed. I didn't replay her words. I didn't rehearse what I should have said. I just slept. 8 full hours. Uninterrupted. That's how I knew I'd won. Not because I'd moved on with someone else, but because I no longer needed to explain the ending to myself. The story had closed. And she was locked outside of it, pounding on a door that no longer existed. Because when a man chooses himself over her chaos, he doesn't just leave. He becomes unreachable. And to a woman like Megan, that's the real heartbreak. Not being hated, but being forgotten. I never saw her again. No dramatic reunion. No final confrontation in a coffee shop. Just silence. And that was the cleanest ending I could have asked for. Months passed. Life didn't just move on, it unfolded. Denver gave me more than distance. It gave me scale. I started teaching part-time at a local design school. Built routines from scratch. Created habits that didn't revolve around someone else's storms. And one night, late June, cool air coming through the balcony door, I sat alone with a notebook and wrote her name for the first time in a while. Not out of longing. Out of observation, to document something that once had weight. Under her name, I wrote one sentence. She's now just a lesson. That was it. No paragraphs. No poetry. No list of grievances. Just a final classification. Because not every ending needs fire. Some just require closure by absence. The last time I heard her name was from a friend back home. She moved, he said. Somewhere north. Quieter. Of course she did. Chaos hates the echo of its own making. And maybe she tells people a different story now. Maybe she frames it as a misunderstanding. Maybe in her version, I gave up too soon. But that's fine. Everyone's the hero of their own edits. What matters is this. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't scream, "Look what you did." I just left. Quietly. Cleanly. Strategically. I became a man she couldn't access anymore. Not emotionally. Not physically. Not digitally. She knocked. I didn't open. She cried. I didn't flinch. Because when you spend long enough begging for loyalty and receive silence in return, you learn to make peace with the echo. And eventually, the echo fades. One morning, I walked past a couple arguing on the sidewalk. He was pleading. She was stone-faced. I didn't stop. Didn't glance twice. Because once you've walked away from someone who didn't flinch while betraying you, begging becomes foreign. Dignity becomes your native language. And peace? That's your final sentence. I still remember the way she smiled before that office party, dressed in red, confident she owned the room. But I remember something else now, too. The way she looked when the locks didn't turn. The way her messages hit silence. The way her name became a footnote, not a headline. She wanted a reaction. She got erasure. And that's what she'll carry. Not my words. Not my rage. But my absence. Permanent. Cold. Unapologetic. The kind of silence that doesn't echo, it just ends. Been through it. When they crossed the line, and you made sure they felt it.